I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Claire? No, I know.
Terry Berenger here.
I know two.
Robert Laraway.
Here.
Brent Peavy.
Here.
Carol Shannon here. Dave Torkelson here. Paul and Joe are excused.
Okay. Agenda's before you. If there are no corrections or additions, we'll accept it as written. Consent agenda. Anybody have anything they want to talk about in the consent agenda? Okay, accept. Motion made by Laraway to accept, second by Peavy. From the discussion, seeing none, all in favor say aye. All opposed say no. Motion carries. Reports. I just want to take this opportunity. I started in the village in 2002. With serving on the planning commission. 2002 and 2003, again with Jackie Adkins and Bill or not Dunham. Yeah. But Bill wasn't. Yeah, Bill Dunham. Yeah, sorry, my bad. And I know how tedious and hard that is to do. And I appreciate everybody's efforts on the planning commission. Because the report we have before us is a very nice report. It's very detailed. And there's a lot of work that goes on. And all past and present people have set up the structure with Tim's guidance for the village that we have. So I just want to make everybody to give them great thanks for their job, because you don't get much satisfaction for a lot of work. That's all. Mr. Manager, you're up.
Quickly run through this. We have received our last shipment of road salt for this winter. We were hearing, statewide salt shortages around the early half of the month, early part of the month. So we said, we're good right now, but we would probably need it in 2 to 3 weeks if we get real weather. So let's just order it now, and it comes in 2 to 3 weeks, we'll be fine. So we actually haven't had to use it since we ordered, but then this next system coming through on Wednesday looks like rain, but we have snow again coming Friday night, perhaps. We'll see, but we're sitting really well on salt and sand right now. The concern I have for this winter is we had ice coming in. I'm worried we're gonna have ice coming out of that weather pattern, bell weathers us essentially, so. We'll see, but all in all, I think we're doing pretty decent on the year. We've had no zoning permits this year, so no activity to report there. This morning at 11 a.m. there was a press conference outside of a new home construction in Wake. And the dreadful local preemption housing bills that were introduced in the last legislative session are back. They're being introduced today, potentially being fast tracked for hearings later this week. Representative Nair, our rep, was identified by the MML as a possible swing vote that they need to quash the local preemption part of these bills. Specifically, the two that I think are the most important for us to reach out to his office about would be duplexes by right. So anywhere you want, you can build a duplex, regardless of what you want, and reduction of minimum dwelling requirements. So you couldn't require 1,200 square feet or whatever. You would have to basically couldn't require more than 600. So someone can build a 600. So those two I think are incredibly dangerous and would have a tremendous undercutting of property values. So unless there are objections, I'm going to continue to reach out based on the discussions we had last time these bills were introduced. Wanted to let you know, and I'm going to send this email out tomorrow. I was out of the off stay in Lansing for most of the day. We were closed yesterday and I took Friday off, but Thursday night, I got a postcard handed to me from ITC. They are a transmission power company. They are formerly part of DT. DT spun them off probably about 20 years ago, but they own all the high voltage transmission wires for DT and consumers. They are rolling out what they're calling the Copperton project. It is going to be a 345 megavolt high transmission line from Midland to Ludington. And there's gonna be some parts that go down to Gratiot into, I think, to Montcalm perhaps as well. But they've got a series of local leader listening sessions happening between March 2nd and March 19th. So I'm gonna share this with everybody so you guys can register if you want to go to any of these. It's a series of 22 meetings between those 2 dates. They'll share information and gather input on the placement of approximately 255 miles of new high voltage electric transmission lines in the mid-Michigan area, part of a larger effort to enhance Michigan's power grid and meet the state's growing energy demands. So share that with you guys so you can see if there's anyone that meets your schedule there.
What's something like that?
I don't know the route.
Okay, so not like through our village or something like that.
I don't know what the route is.
Okay.
We have an airport, so that is gonna limit any height
Oh,
of
yeah,
those type of structures within a certain distance of our airport, so.
good.
Continuing to engage the city and county in public safety discussions to get back to the committee. Both are working pretty diligently and with good questions about, you know, can we do this, can we do that? So when I get that, I can present to them, but I sent everybody an email kind of summarizing where we're at in that process. The new twist was the city was interested in also picking up the lake patrols. So it's interesting, you know. Planning Commission met last Tuesday, a couple items that I'm gonna talk about now. We're talking about it in the housing part of the planning zone report. We are going to look at ordinance language to address data centers in our zoning ordinance. Not a huge risk in my opinion, but we are right next to the Wolverine transmission lines. And you need a higher electrical load to do a facility like that, so it's not out of the question that it would be in our area, potentially a smaller one, but. We wanted to make sure that we were proactive in having regulations that we want as opposed to being forced to deal with it, not on our terms.
One live outside.
The planning commission at their next meeting, which will be in April, because they're meeting on the evens, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. We'll be holding a public hearing on the park lot entrance ordinance, so. This came up, last year, we started talking about this and said, you know, we let you jump the street to build a garage. We've got probably 40-ish, 30, 40 of these type of park entrance panhandles that are 10, 15, 20, 25 feet wide. And the only purpose they serve is to provide access to the park from the street. But they're almost all exclusively not maintained. There's no fencing, there's anything like that. But because it is, you know, this example, dividing between lots 140 and 139. If you owned 140, you couldn't put a garage on 139. And we said, yeah, that doesn't jive with the way we've been thinking and what we've been doing, because if you can jump the street, you should be able to jump 20 feet, you know, next to you. So we're gonna look at an ordinance amendment to make that permissible in our ordinance, so that those would be considered contiguous for the purposes of having an accessory structure. We're gonna come up with some type of language to present to the association as well that says, you know, for these type of deed combinations, we want to have a clause in here that they have to acknowledge that they have no right of ownership to that access strip or anything like that. Make you aware of those as they come up, so you can also be in contact with them. Yeah, that's about it for now.
Anything else for Tim?
Ask about the data centers, if they're really popping up like that frequently, or if one would really come like northern Michigan,
Oh, yeah,
really?
they love northern Michigan.
Huh,
They require
Less
cooling.
regulation, probably.
oh,
They love our cold climate because we also don't have natural disaster weather events like hurricanes and those type of things.
tons of
There is,
tornadoes.
to my knowledge,
Right.
of firm shopping locations in Isabella County. That
Oh,
is what I've been told.
Hmm.
But yeah, they are certainly looking, for places to go.
Hmm. How big would be a data center be?
That depends on what you define in your ordinance.
Yeah. That's interesting. Okay. Anything else? Okay. Going on, public comments? Elliot, do you have anything to say? Nope, he's not even paying attention. Okay, so we have one public hearing. Proposed ordinance 2026-01. Land Division Act revisions. The public hearing is open at 7:10. Mr. Manager.
This is the proposed amendments to the land division ordinance to reflect the changes that were made to the state law at the end of last year that allow local communities to adopt an ordinance to allow a greater number of divisions than would be otherwise allowed in the act. We've had no calls, comments, questions about it since we published it.
Okay. Anything from the public? Seeing none. Public portion is closed. Any questions from Mr. Wolf from the council? Okay. Chair will entertain a motion. To accept.
Yeah, you can find it. I'll make a motion that we accept the proposed ordinance 2026-01.
Motion made by PV to accept proposed ordinance 2026-01, seconded by Laraway. Further discussion? Seeing none, roll call please.
Mark Laraway,
Yes.
Fred Peavy,
Yes.
Carol Shannon, yes. Carrie Behringer. Yes. Dave Torkelson.
Yes, motion carried 5-0, which is a quorum. Okay, let's go to existing business. Is there any? You ordered in that tonight, okay. New business, 2025 planning and zoning report. So this is a report of last year.
Correct, so by law, the planning commission must submit a report detailing planning and zoning activity for the previous calendar year, along with any recommendations to the legislative body for their review and, you know, approval, acceptance, put on file, whatever. As part of adopting the master plan, we included in that a housing strategy. And part of that was to include reporting on housing activity as part of this report. So we kind of took a quick stab at, you know, these are the kind of metrics that we could easily pull out right now without having to do a whole lot more work into this. So the chart you see up on the board right there, the red line represents the actual number of new homes built or being constructed each year. And then the bars below it represent the zoning district in which those developments occurred. So the blue on the left is LR1, the orange is LR2, gray is LR3, the mustard is LR4. We didn't have LR5, so that's why that other blue isn't up there. But overall, we averaged 10 homes a year over the last 5 years, so 50 homes in 5 years. Most of that occurring in the LR1 district. So in the LR1 district, we saw 48% of those new homes built. We saw 10% in the LR2, which I actually think is a pretty good number. We had not seen a lot of development in LR2 for many, many years. So seeing, you know, even 5 new homes or an average of 1 a year in that zoning district, to me is an encouraging sign. LR3, we saw 18%, and then LR4, a quarter roughly. How that breaks down is 34 of those 50 homes were waterfront, 16 were non-waterfront sites. The one thing that is in that report for you that I think is a you know, tremendous pat on the back for the work that the council has done in recent years is, was it 44% of those homes were only developed because we did the work on the unbuildable lots. So 22 of those 50 homes would not be here today if we had not gone through that process and got the restrictions lifted and amended. South, States 2, North, Mirror Park, and Canterbury Estates. So that work is paying off now in the development that we're seeing. We're seeing it in our tax base growth. We're seeing it in our population growth. So all of that work that we did back then is the fruit of that labor. In terms of the goals for 2026, we're going to continue to work mainly on housing focused goals. So maintain development ready inventory of parcels, complete a zoning and permit streamline packaging, Adopt housing focused zoning updates, align with the master plan and target market analysis. So at our next planning commission meeting, some of the items that we are going to be talking about. And looking at doing some type of ordinance amendment potentially. Lowering those required minimum dwelling sizes. Not to the extent the state is gonna try to preempt us, but bring those back down. Look at changing how we define an attached garage. So right now, it's like, foundation, walls, roof, go to something that, is a common roof or, foundation, something like that, because the house that we talked about, I think in December, perhaps I showed you the illustration on. They're doing a wraparound porch on the property and, the garage technically wouldn't have been attached if they hadn't done it through the basement. And like, it's a gorgeous home. That is something I think we should probably be more flexible on. We also talked about, in the LR1 district, not requiring an attached, but allowing it to be attached or detached. So not requiring on a new build to have an attached garage, but requiring to either have an attached or detached. Still gotta do a garage, but you could do a detached. And then finally, right now the ordinance says you've gotta have at least 2 full platted lots or a half acre to do a detached garage if you have an attached garage. Getting rid of that requirement as well. So. You may not be able to build a giant garage if you just have a single lot, but you can build a 24 by 24 perhaps, in addition to your attached garage. So doing all those things to allow more development, allow flexibility in the development process, those are the directions we're taking those discussions at the planning commission level. And then the one that we added at the meeting, through our discussion is pursue a detached single family development on our lots in Lake Isabella North. And we have talked about this several times. And we've had an initial conversation with the State Land Bank Authority about a project. And what I want to walk you through for the next few minutes is kind of some of the things that could potentially go into a project like this. So, one of the things that they said we may want to consider doing at the local level is creating a brownfield redevelopment authority to assist in developing a project like this. So what is a brownfield? Well, a brownfield traditionally is an abandoned, contaminated, or underutilized industrial commercial property. A lot of gas stations are brownfield sites, a lot of old, those factories, those type of things. Well, in 2023, Public Act 90 was approved and now permissible for a brownfield redevelopment authority to use tax increment financing to reimburse developers with captured revenues for housing development activities. You have to have a BRA to do this though. So what can be covered under this new amendment to the Brownfield Act? Infrastructure and necessary safety improvements and reimbursement for those improvements if they're done by the developer, or site preparation that isn't a response to contamination. So grading, clearing, those type of things. So in that basket of what it goes in there, water, sewer, storm sewer, detention areas, roads and streets, sidewalks and multi-use paths, street lighting, site clearing and grading. So when you look at that area north, realistic things that could be included in that would be, if they want to repave the street for us. If they want to put in a pathway around that area for us. Those would be development eligible costs that could be paid for out of a TIF. So what is a TIF? So a TIF, once you create it, you have your Brownfield Redevelopment Authority, you have a plan, you send that plan off to the state of Michigan. You need to do that because you have to have the state's approval to capture the school taxes and the education tax as part of it. You don't capture any of the debt taxes, so any of the bonds, those type of things. But when you get that done, you establish a base. So everybody gets the same tax dollars they're getting today. You don't lose your tax dollars you're getting today. But the increase in the taxable value, that goes into that TIF pool. So that's what pays for those improvements and those development costs that are eligible. And then at the end of your TIF, the tax base goes up to where it was at. So it's basically you're using the new value from the development to help pay for some of the needed things that allow the development to happen, is how it works. So what type of taxes or what type of dollars are we realistically looking at? So we've talked about doing about 15 homes of a development agreement in North. Double lots. So the next slide shows the potential of that type of project with 5 homes in year 1, 5 homes in year 2, 5 homes in year 3. Capturing all of the available millages, including the school and the education taxes. We're gonna need to involve the land bank in this, which is the next part of the slide here. But once you pay your land bank obligations, which is 50% of that that value over the 5 years. There's still $375,000 left to put towards those projects and those developments. That's assuming, you know, the current cost of construction, you know, at the cost per square foot. You know, 14-ish square 100-foot homes. That's a pretty sizable chunk of money that you can put towards developing something in that area that is benefiting the greater residents in that area. You know, whether it's a trail, whether it's a street they don't have to pay for, whether it's, you know, any of those type of amenities that make that an attractive place to locate. So why do we need to involve the land bank in this process? Well, a land bank takes land that's in public or private ownership. And once the land bank handles it, you can extinguish liens and clear title, maintain or repair the property, that kind of stuff. So in this case here, all of those lots came with a restriction from the state of Michigan, specifically the DNR, because they were previously tax foreclosed. We did not acquire them at fair market value. We acquired them under the public use clause for $25 a pop. That's all we're ever gonna get from them in their current state. We sell them, we only get $25 back. So when we look at a project like this, you know, the TIF doesn't harm us in any way, shape, or form because we're not getting anything for these lots anyway. If we sell them, we gotta give the money to the county from the sale. And then they're just gonna sit, because that is the history that we have seen on these lots, is when we release them out into, you know, general purchasing. People buy them and sit on them, they make their yards bigger, you know. We're not seeing a lot of development when we release these lots. And as we look at the needs of the community in the future, that's not necessarily, I think, a winning solution in terms of the finances we need to support the infrastructure that's there in this area of the village. So that's a lot to digest in a very short amount of time. But it's really a pretty straightforward project if you think about what would happen in that area. You create the VRA, you pursue some type of pre-development agreement to allow, you know, someone to do some due diligence. You can either do that through a solicitation process or direct negotiation with a potential developer. The state of Michigan is, the Land Bank Authority was very interested in doing the project. They did encourage us to talk with Isabella County. Because the counties kind of kicked the tires on maybe doing a land bank, because another big project in the area that would benefit is the redevelopment of the Mount Pleasant Center site. Because that too has the same type of deed restriction. So kind of the direction I would like either tonight or at our next meeting is, should I work on doing the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority? It's a 2-resolution process. You have a resolution of intent, hold a public hearing, and then adopt it. You don't have to do anything after that, other than appoint a board to serve on it, but you don't have to do anything more than that. But having that in place opens that toolbox up if something were to happen. Would there be any opposition to me engaging with the city so that we could jointly pursue lobbying the county to create a land bank? Because the two of us working together, I think may make that sell.
Well, especially it helps them.
It helps them a ton.
Yeah.
You know, any objections to me continuing to work with the state land bank in the interim on this type of project? We did reach out, after our meeting and sent an email to the county treasurer asking if we could set up a meeting to talk about doing a land bank or talk about this project so that she's in the loop about that. And then just think about, would a solicitation process or a direct negotiation be the desired way if things were to get to that point on how you'd like to see, development proposals come in for essentially a pre-development agreement.
When you say solicitation, what's that look like?
You create basically a request for proposals,
Yeah.
and say, this is our goal, this is our vision, here's the process, here's the tools available, what do you see? Is it something that interests you?
So, couple questions. How do we qualify for being a brownfield? Developments?
Everybody does.
Everybody.
If for housing, yeah.
For housing, so you don't have to have anything.
There just has to be a demonstrated shortage of or need for housing, which
Okay.
everybody does,
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, and if we didn't have that amendment to the Brownfield Redevelopment Act, there really wouldn't be, I think, a purpose to do that from like Isabella, because we really don't have any contaminated sites. It would have helped maybe 20 years ago for the hub because they had investees there that they needed to remove, but I don't think those were leaking.
No.
But that's really the most common BRA activity is gas station remediation.
That would give us the option of creating some of the homes we'd like to see that are more affordable.
Yeah, because if you do some type of solicitation that you refine, these are the homes that we want to see in this area of the village. And here are the tools that we're gonna allow you to work with. That puts us in the driver's seat, it puts us in the, ability to be selective in what we do. And the thing to think about too, because I don't like giving tax abatements and that kind of stuff. I mean, it is what it is, but from our balance sheet perspective, we're not getting anything when we get rid of these lots. This is a financially wise move on our part to not have a higher tax burden on our residents.
Right.
Because if we can get development here, that is income from people not already paying taxes essentially. So to me, that's a responsible way to steward this property that the village has.
And I know there are people out there who are looking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So who would actually sell the land? Like if we bring in a developer, they build 15 houses. Who sells it? The developer?
yes.
They buy it from the land bank.
So that's part of the agreement. So part of that, there would have to be at the sale, some type of reimbursement to either really the county probably, on the land part of the deal. But yeah, it would go through at that point in time. So there would be a clawback provision from the land bank agreement with them that if they don't develop it returns to the land bank as opposed to just sitting in their portfolio with nothing to do. So the development agreement would require that development to occur essentially. So they can't just sit on vacant property.
Within a timeline we could set.
Yeah.
Are any objections to Tim pursuing that from anybody?
No,
No.
I'm curious about it. I mean, my concern would just be like, if you don't, 15 houses on the market, does it affect other people,
Sure.
other people's projects, local builders?
Well, local builders could definitely be part of the solicitation too.
Yeah,
Nothing's gonna stop if we do that route, like a Shape or whoever from saying this is a proposal we would offer you.
right.
We could negotiate with more than one?
Yeah.
Okay,
Or multiple could form their own partnership too.
okay, cool.
Okay, make it so. Without objection. At least, let's get the ball rolling, right? Any other public comment? Elliot, do you have anything to say? All right. Any council comments? Well, I missed it. All right. Seeing none. Announcements, let's see, next next month, the planning commission meets?
Nope, an odd number. Yeah, I mean, I need.
April.
April.
April. Okay. All right, seeing none. We are adjourned.